Okay, so in this video I'm going to have a look at calculating the range and the interquartile range of two sets of numbers here. So let's have a look at, first of all, the range of this set of numbers. So in order to calculate the range, you need the highest and the lowest. But in order to calculate the interquartile range, or in fact the median, which we covered in a previous video, you're going to have to rank these numbers or put them in order. So if we put these numbers in order from lowest to highest, we get 2, 2, 3, 3, 5, 7, and 8. So to calculate the range, all you've got to do is write down the highest, subtract the lowest, 8 minus 2, and that gives you 6. So the range in this case, difference between the highest and lowest is 6. Okay, so now let's have a look at the interquartile range. So in order to calculate the interquartile range, you're going to need to calculate Q1, which is called the lower quartile, first of all, and Q3, which is the upper quartile. Let's have a look at the lower quartile first. So we can see here that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 numbers. We want a quarter of 7 for the lower quartile, and you get 1.75. Because 1.75 is not a whole number, we round up, so we're going to round up to 2. So we're going to count the second number as being our Q1. So this is our first number, this is our second number, so Q1 is our second number in this case, which happens to be a 2. Okay, so that's Q1. Now I'm going to calculate Q3, which is our upper quartile. By the way, if you're wondering where Q2 went, Q2 is in fact the median, which we covered in a previous video. It's the middle number. Middle number in this case happens to be 3 here. When you put them in order, this here is the middle number. You've got 3 on this side, 3 on this side. So 3 is our middle number here, which is Q2. Okay, so to calculate Q3 here, we're going to divide our 7 numbers into quarters, but now we want Q3, which is 3 quarters, so we multiply by 3, so that will give us 5.75. 5.75 is not a whole number, so again I'm going to round up to 6, from 5.75 up to 6, and if we count the 6th number here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, our 6th number is 7, so Q3 is 7. Right, so now we have our Q1, we have our Q3, so what I'm going to do now is calculate or work out the interquartile range. The interquartile range, or IQR here, is just Q3 minus Q1. Q3 was 7, Q1 was 2, so our interquartile range is 5. 7 minus 2, 5. Now, our original range here was 6. If you just take the highest and the lowest, our range was 6. Our interquartile range was 5. Now our interquartile range generally will give you a better idea of how spread out the data is, because if this wasn't an 8, for example, say it was 100, it would be what's called an outlier. It's not very typical of the rest of the numbers. So if you just took the range 100 minus 2, which is 98, it doesn't tell you how spread out most of the data is. Whereas our interquartile range 7 minus 2, which was 5, does give you an idea of how spread out the data actually is. Okay, so let's have a look at this set of numbers here. So this is, first of all, this is a different set of numbers, and it has actually 12 numbers in it. And first of all, we're just going to have a look at the range. So there are 12 numbers here. First of all, we've got to put them in order, so let's do that first. So if we put them in order, we get 3, 3, 3, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, and there's another 6. There's a 7, 8, and 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So to calculate the range here, Again, that's just the highest, which is 8, the lowest, which is 3. Subtract them, you get 5. So our range here is 5. Okay, now let's move on to interquartile range. So we need to calculate Q1, which is our lower quartile. So to calculate Q1, we have 12 numbers here, so you take 12. Again, we divide by 4. And we find that we get a whole number this time. Remember, this time here we didn't get a whole number, we got 1.75. So when you don't get a whole number, you always round up. Always round up, and we got 2 here, so we pick the second number. In this case, we do have a whole number, but you don't pick the third number. In fact, what you do is you pick the third and the fourth number. The third number here is 3, the fourth number is 4. You get the mean of them, so you get 3.5. So our Q1 here is 3.5. Okay, let's look at our Q3 then. Our Q3 is our upper quartile. So in this case, again, we have 12 numbers. We divide by 4 to get 1/4. We want 3/4 this time because it's the upper quartile, so we multiply by 3. And in this case, our lower quartile was 3, so multiply that by 3, you get 9. Okay, so in this case, we want the 9th number, you would think. But in actual fact, we do the same as what we did here. It's not the 9th number, it's the 9th and the 10th number that we're looking for. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Our 9th number is 6. Our 10th number is 7. So these two numbers here are the numbers we're going to add and divide by 2. So 6 and 7. So 6 and 7. So we're going to look at 6 plus 7. We're going to divide by 2. That'll give us 6.5. So our Q3 is actually 6.5. Okay, so again, to calculate the interquartile range, so the interquartile range here is just going to be Q3 minus Q1. So that's going to be 6.5 minus 3.5. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's just going to be 3. So our interquartile range in this case is 3. And if you remember, our actual range was 5 here. But that's the difference between our highest and our lowest. Our interquartile range is going to be the difference between these two numbers here. A quarter the way up and 3/4 the way up. Okay, so just to summarize here, we've had two different procedures here for calculating the lower quartile, the upper quartile. To calculate the lower quartile, if you divide the number of numbers by 4 and it's not a whole number, always round up. If it's a whole number, you take that number and the next number. So in this case it was the third number, and we also took the fourth number and we divided them by 2. The two numbers happen to be 3 and 4 in this case. In this case here for the upper quartile, we divided 12 by 4 we got and multiplied by 3, we got 9. So we don't pick the 9th number, we pick the 9th and the 10th number, which is 6, which happened to be 6 and 7. Divide by 2 and we get 6.5. Here when we went 3/4 the way up, we got 5.75, which is not a whole number, so we rounded it up to 6. So we picked the 6th number. So two different procedures. It's important that you can distinguish between the two and you remember how to approach each.